Acceptance, the Language of Recovery by Jeff Rounds. Chapter 4, Identifying the Stages of Awareness. Whether in groups or one-on-one, it's important to recognize when people are ready, willing, and able to change. Willingness to change is directly connected to our self-awareness and where we are in the grieving process. People can be encouraged in any stage of grieving, yet it requires understanding to maintain healthy boundaries and avoid the hazards of working with people in denial. People often need to be heard and validated and assured they have options. The challenge is to be supportive without triggering defenses. People respond defensively to a number of perceived threats, including embarrassment, personal loss, disrespect, challenged beliefs, gaslighting, physical harm, and accusations. If a person feels judged, they will often reduce or end their willingness to be open, honest, and vulnerable. To avoid causing a threat, learn the signs of denial and how to side with it to regain peace. Witnessing and recalling our own grieving and acceptance is a powerful tool in aiding others still experiencing suffering. Using the correct language is also important. Avoid telling people what to do at all costs. Replace that with explaining what has worked for you and understand that everyone's recovery looks different, even when we are doing the same things. Denial has predictable symptoms, and when triggered, human defenses sound like, "I do not have a problem, you do." People will often pose their most convincing arguments when denial is triggered because it engages the bargaining mind, and we tell others the same justifications and reasoning we have been telling ourselves. Become aware that every accusation is a confession. Also, the stronger the argument, the more emotionally invested the person is. When in denial, people will often project shame and blame towards anyone they believe is in opposition. Denial in many cases is denying the emotional impact our thoughts, words, and behaviors have on ourselves and others. Denial in the simplest terms is lack of emotional intelligence. Intuitively, we know when other people are closed-minded or defensive. To minimize the damage and even reverse the process of triggering defenses, take the side of the threatened person, focusing on the healthy aspects of what is being expressed. Agree with the objections, and offer compassion and respect for boundaries whenever a trigger is recognized. Be willing to let someone shut down and isolate themselves while they process their feelings, because the experience is often embarrassing. Some people may even tap into some dark and hateful feelings when triggered. It could be for the best for everyone if they are allowed and even encouraged to express their thoughts and feelings of anger. Examples: "I am glad you are letting this out. It's really good to express yourself." "You are right. That sounds like it would make me angry too." "I can understand why you feel that way. I can relate." "That must be difficult. I'm sorry for what you're experiencing." These are examples of things that come naturally for people with an accumulation of acceptance. Memorizing exact wording and precise techniques will often misguide us from the intuitive responses that will come effortlessly as a result of being fully present. Study this guide as a basis for helping others, and not necessarily the only or perfect way. Have faith that the right words will come if your intentions are selfless. Denial continues during the bargaining stage, and it often sounds like complaining. Complaining is a needed part of the grieving process. Complaining to people who will listen without judging and complaining to a higher power are healthy outlets for this need. In many cases, complaining inspires needed change. Ego has a need for a sense of being right, and having others sympathize with our suffering provides the acceptance and validation needed to process a loss. Complaining can be very effective, but it can also be very manipulative and destructive. Chronic complainers may seek people willing to rescue them, which can become very draining for anyone attempting to support them. Without boundaries and awareness, it can be very easy to enter a toxic cycle with a client, sponsee, or another person in general. It isn't healthy to give assistance if expecting change from others, especially when they are currently incapable due to denial. People change for two main reasons, and frequently a combination of both. Either they have hurt themselves enough to have let something go, or there is a promise of something bigger and better. Depending on the nature, degree, and stage of grief, change may not be possible at times, and allowing someone to complain without interruption may be the best course of action. This is similar to the coddling often provided by trained professionals, and for the same reason. People in denial are unable to accept new information. A mind trapped in denial is a closed system. When triggered, it tends to shut down, and that serves no one. Eventually, if someone we are helping continues complaining, rejecting, suggesting, and insisting that nothing is helping, they must be let go and considered a loss. The bottom line is that someone who refuses to change or be accountable cannot accept help because their minds are closed. Excessive support with no hope of change is enabling and unhealthy. Also, mismatches and timing issues are common in recovery, and letting go allows everyone to attract better matches. Being ineffective is emotionally draining for everyone. Whether a sponsor, mentor, coach, peer specialist, or other, there's no point in forcing anything. It's not a responsibility of sponsors to fix, sell, or convince anyone of the value of taking recovery seriously. We can only help those who want it. With a willingness to let go, we eventually grow tired of our own complaining, which naturally diminishes. When a person is closest to letting go or very near acceptance, the story and explanation of their issues becomes short, and they confess their feelings about the loss. When humans communicate honestly in this manner, it is an act of confession and transparency. The proper response to a confession is another honest confession. Offering advice when no question has been asked or permission given is unhealthy and considered steering. When people steer each other or give unsolicited advice, they are exhibiting their own control issues and non-acceptance. The advice can be offered in the language of a confession with the preface, "This is what has worked for me." Without qualifying the suggestion as one possible solution, people unwittingly cross each other's boundaries, eventually creating alienation. The intention of emotional support and sponsorship is to validate the idea that everyone has their own answers, and through the confession of others, you may find yourself, hear your own story, and find your own answers. Boundaries are an important aspect of recovery and life. They represent limits we place on ourselves. One example of a healthy boundary is accepting and reminding ourselves that every time we speak to anyone about recovery, it may be the last. Practicing detachment is key in recovery because we never know the limits of another person's willingness. Honesty and self-awareness provide the intuitive information needed to maintain healthy boundaries. Body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, patterns of behavior, and speech are indicators of how receptive another person is to our support. Ego defenses protect us from perceived threats. In some cases, the imagined threats are healthy changes in our lives that we do not feel emotionally prepared to handle. Subconsciously, the mind of ego fears letting go because it knows all losses are painful and may end in tears. Healthy emotional support allows us to witness and encourage tears and the act of surrender as a means to gain more acceptance. How we manage another person's tears will determine how helpful and healing our support can be for them. Support means encouraging healthy behaviors and validating negative experiences while maintaining healthy boundaries. It also means listening more than we talk and avoiding the desire to give advice on personal matters. We do not tell people what they need to do. We ask them what they are willing to do and offer suggestions that have worked for us and others.